All right, so we are here to talk about advocacy, sponsors, mentors, and we have an amazing panel here today before you. Again, my name is Devona Stripling. I have the privilege and honor to serve as the Women Excels Program Manager at the Cincinnati Chamber of Commerce, and I just taken a privilege and honor to serve you all today with this amazing panel. So without further ado, I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, their organizations, and tell a little bit about yourselves, a little background so we can get to know who you are as the person. You want to start, David?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is David Coe, and happy to be here with you all today. First time at a Queen City Game Changers event, so I'm excited to learn about the program and the overall organization, and it sounds fantastic. I currently work as part of Cintas as the Vice President of Talent Acquisition, and have been part of the organization for not quite a year, but am thrilled to represent Cintas today and happy to share everything that we're doing that pertains to the overall Game Changers mission, values, and goals. So really excited to be part of the event. Thanks so much.
Great. My name is Dan Waugh. I work at GE Aerospace, and I serve as the executive champion for our women's network at GE Aerospace. And we were fortunate enough to learn about the Game Changer Council this year, and we're excited to be joining for the first year. So very excited to be here with the team. I run one of our supply chain new part manufacturing business units within GE. I've been at the company for 25 years. I'm a homegrown, not a Bengals fan, but starting to get there because my favorite team is not good. I grew up.
We've been there.
Yeah. I grew up in Westchester. I think I moved there in 1981 and have spent most of my time here in and around the city. And I'm very excited to be here with you all today.
Great.
Good morning. Julie Cadnor with Great American Insurance Group, and I've been with them 35 years. I just want to tell a little bit about, I'm one of 6 children in 8 years. And so growing up, I learned to speak up really quickly. But it wasn't until my career at Great American that I realized speaking up is a good thing, but if you want to be listened to, if you want to be heard, it's really important to learn to communicate and articulate a clear and concise message. And so it's something I've been working on my whole career and something I still work on today.
Good morning. My name is Liza Smitherman. I am with Jostin Construction. We are a first-generation family-owned business, and believe it or not, I work with my husband and have done so for 25 years, and we're still married.
And you still like each other. That's
and
good.
we actually still like
Good.
each other. I am not a Cincinnati native, come from Columbus, so I was not always a Cincinnati Bengals fan, and in fact, I was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan and still am, so don't boo me. But I do root for the Bengals as well. So we are sometimes a home divided when Pittsburgh and the Bengals play each other, but it's all good. Have 4 children, 2 of which are in the business, and I'll share a little more about that. Later, 3 boys and a girl, and I also have 2 very beautiful, yummy grandsons. So look forward to learning and listening and hearing more about all of this and really appreciate being a part of it.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Amy Thompson, and it's good to see you all. I understand that there are a lot of entrepreneurs in the room, so my entrepreneurness started when I was 12. I started a camp in my backyard. That's all I got. But similar to some of Julie's comments, one of the things as we think about how can we be game changers is I worked my way through different nonprofits. I get to represent the nonprofit world up here today. Is many times I was pitching for my role. It was a role that didn't exist, but I saw a need, and so we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into some of the discussion. I'm currently at the Cincinnati Youth Collaborative. I spent 20 years out at Camp Joy, was at the Chamber working with this wonderful woman, Devona, and so thrilled to be with you all today. So let's have some fun.
All right. So with that being said, now let's define mentors, sponsors, and sponsorship. While a mentor could be provided a career change, guidance, a sponsor can help your career directly move or advance. More importantly, a sponsor elevates you at work, places in a new role, ensures you get credit, and defends you in your absence. there are usually maybe 2 or 3 people above you that can, in your organization, that can help you do that. I'd like everyone to really speak about how have you been sponsored? Have you ever been sponsored by someone? Or what did that relationship look like? And how did that benefit you today? Anybody want to start that question?
Well, I'll go.
Go ahead, Liza.
So I have not been sponsored. My former career was in education, and I did that for about 10 years. But when my husband and I started our business, it was my husband's dream, not anyone else's for that matter, but I was really happy to be able to be a part of the work. Where we have now sponsored is really as we're thinking now of our succession plan and who's next in line. And so besides having one son in particular who we really want to take hold of the reins and move forward, we're being very intentional about moving him forward and providing him with those opportunities. And it's a multi-year plan. We have a few other folks who are not family who we also know we want to be in specific roles in the business. And so we are, again, being very transparent with all of our staff, because sometimes you have to be careful when people are sort of selected or you are being intentionally moved forward. It can sometimes create some conflict sometimes with others. So being very clear on what the goals and what the plan is for the business so that folks understand that, and very intentional about their growth.
Good, thank you. Anyone else?
I was fortunate enough to have a sponsor early on in my career. A gentleman several layers over me took an interest and started inviting me to meetings and getting me involved much more in the business than I would have been. So I was just very fortunate.
I again would say, don't be afraid to ask. People love to be asked. They see that as a compliment, but people are also very busy. And so to follow up appropriately, not to become a neg, but to follow up is very meaningful as well. So same situation. I've been fortunate to have a couple of people, both men and women, who have helped me along the way. And then I too say, okay, how can I be intentional, just like you are with your son? Who else should I be thinking about within my organization and outside of the organization to help them along their way? One of the things I'd ask you all to think about, you have these wonderful notebooks. At some point today, write down who have been your sponsors and who are you sponsoring, or who are you really helping along the way as well.
I might jump on that one. I think it was really well said. Sometimes there's an element of an official sponsor or an unofficial sponsor, somebody that sees you in action and sees the results and the way that you work with teams and people. I would also echo, people are always talking about people. And I'm in the position where I attend meetings talking about talent within the organization. So whether you know it or not, or whether it's official or not, every interaction you have with a leader or somebody that works in the organization below you, those are moments that create indirect sponsorships and help promote your brand and your potential next moves, next roles in those broader discussions. So always think about the interactions you have, whether it's, again, with a coworker or with a leader, as an opportunity to develop that sponsorship as they carry that forward within the organization.
Good. David, do you have anything to add?
It's tough to follow all of these comments because I think they're all so spot on. I really resonated with what Amy was sharing, though, and Dan's comments as well. I think I'm fortunate and blessed to be a part of Cintas for a lot of reasons, but one is that we do have a very deliberate and well-established succession planning platform, which a lot of organizations do. If you're part of a group or an organization that doesn't, it might be something to consider, because to Dan's point, I think it fosters that natural discussion about where can folks inside our organization potentially go next, if they need some sort of guidance, professional development, or whatever the case may be, to help them be ready for that, or at least identifying that early on. And it, I really believe, creates this culture of inclusiveness and developing everybody inside the organization to be the best that they can possibly be. So I thought the input was great from everybody.
Good. Now the next question is for Julie and Dan. Has anyone ever asked you to be a sponsor when you did not know them well or not big or supportive of their capabilities? What did you say to them?
You want to go
Julie or
first?
Dan?
So yes, there's been 3 times in my career where I've received a call from another manager asking me to mentor or sponsor a young lady who I had no idea who they were. So of course you say yes, you're always open to meeting new people and getting to know people, but you also want to help them and guide them and take an interest in them because, again, like Amy said, as a leader, it's our responsibility, it's part of our role is to develop the next leaders. So yeah, just take an effort and get to know someone else.
Yeah, same here. I have been a sponsor, mentor. We call it Spentor, which is a sponsor plus mentor, with several people over my career. I probably have 5 at this point in time, and a few of them I did not know. And I think that's an opportunity to develop the relationship. And the way I typically do it is we start out with a half an hour get to know. We talk about their experience, their interests, where they want to develop and grow. I share a little bit about myself, and then at that first meeting, we set the agenda for the next meeting. And I think, Amy, you said it very well. It's an element of, I'm never going to say no to an invite. I am here to help. So we will set up a monthly rhythm where we'll talk about development areas, struggles, challenges, rumor mills, and how to deal with difficult people within the team. And it's really a element to see how that employee grows and where they take it. Sometimes I've had sponsees that don't follow up. And that's, to me, their time is valuable. My time is valuable. If it's not a match, if it's not a serious initiative, we just call it what it is and move on. But I think that it's an opportunity for the sponsee to really take advantage of the situation and use it as best they can.
That's good. And making sure that follow-up is important, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So David, Amy, and Liza, I got a question for you guys. How do you support women in leadership or provide internal support for employees advance in your organizations, especially women of color? Who want to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So I think that this is something that's it's an ongoing evolutionary process, and I look at this a little bit like I do talent acquisition as a whole, which of course that's my day job, so I'm thinking about it all the time. But not unlike a game of golf or anything else that's out there, the most perfectly designed DEI strategy or female talent development strategy or women of color strategy is never actually going to be perfect. You'll always have to be evolving it, changing it. I think you need to be comfortable with creating a great strategy, setting forth to try to accomplish it, and knowing that it will evolve over time. And the organization today that I'm a part of has a great DE&I platform and initiative. It works really well. It's woven throughout the organization. I think we go out of our way at Cintas, frankly, to try to identify fantastic Cintas partners who are women, not only from a promotion standpoint, but even just a better recognition standpoint. From a recruiting strategy standpoint, I can tell you that it's a critical part of our overall talent acquisition strategy and something that we're very deliberate about. And we have to be, because I think that if you really do want to diversify the organization, not only in terms of race, gender, diversity of thought, everything along those lines, it has to become a practice. You have to develop that muscle memory to constantly be looking for it and pushing for it. And again, be comfortable with never fully achieving your goal, and be comfortable moving that goalpost on yourself and always striving for more.
What about you? Amy, you're looking directly at me, so I'm going to come after you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I could either say I feel very fortunate or intentional that we have an incredibly diverse team at the Cincinnati Youth Collaborative. We wanted to make sure that we are representing the young people that we work with They can see themselves in their leaders. And so day in and day out, I am working with a lot of people who don't look like me, and I love that. So I haven't walked in everyone's shoes. Other people haven't walked in mine. So it's about relationships. How do I start? By getting to know
about making sure our folks see a diverse group of people, but especially for our women of color in our business, and they're not just all black. We have Hispanic women of color as well in our business. We make sure that we provide opportunities for them to continue to advance and grow. And as Amy said, bring others. It's that lift as you climb, which is the YWC statement that I think is so important.
Awesome, awesome. Now, as Cincinnati business women, what is some advice for our Queen City Game Changers when looking for a sponsor or a mentor for some of those C-suite spots? Julie, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Several things that you should do. First of all, if you don't know someone in the C-suite or someone high in the organization, ask your manager to make a call on your behalf. Ask someone that you know to introduce you. As Amy was saying, people, they enjoy being asked to do that, but sometimes it takes someone to speak on your behalf, to set something up. Second, once that introduction is made, take control of that relationship. You set the meeting up. Send an Outlook invite, and the first meeting should be 20 or 30 minutes. Sometimes it's hard to get an hour of somebody's time. So send, an Outlook invite, say I want it together, and then come prepared. Bring a notebook, have at least 6 questions written down so you don't get there and go, well, I really don't have anything to talk about. Say, hey, and then express what it is you're hoping to get out of this relationship. Hey, I'm looking to advance my career, or hey, I'm looking to get into a new opportunity in another department. Whatever it is, so come prepared. Thank them, after you leave the meeting, send a thank you and set up the next meeting, and then continuously, meet with them, I would say every 8 weeks, and have some sort of agenda always planned, questions always planned, so be prepared and control that relationship.
Liza, can you answer to that as well?
Yeah, so I was thinking about something we did in our business. I mentioned the why of our business. Many businesses have their mission and their vision, which we have as well, but we also have a why statement, and this really came from a TED Talk that we were exposed to several years ago by a gentleman by the name of Simon Sinek, and it's called The Golden Circle. And if you haven't seen it, it's about 15-20 minutes long. It's worth it. What it's really about is how you move your business and how you really inspire people to want to connect and be a part of what you're doing. And it's very applicable for businesses, but it's also important when you're thinking about your own brand and how you are connecting to leaders in an organization. Or if you're an entrepreneur, how you're connecting to people who can help support and move your business forward. And so it's about knowing why you do what you do. We all know what we do and how we do it. For the most part, we know what we do. Most of the time, we know how we do what we do. But we don't always lead with or talk about why we do what we do. And that's really about your values or your beliefs. So as you're looking at leaders, C-suiters that you want, or again, businesses that are in your space, but that have been around a lot longer, or again, may be able to provide some guidance, some coaching, some advice, some challenging kinds of questions or scenarios for you to have to tackle. I think it's important, just as what Julie said, those things are very, very important. And you want to draw the attention of some of these C-suiters by being able to say to them, first, not this is what I do and how I do it, but this is why I do what I do. Start there with why I do what I do, and therefore why I would want you to be someone who can, because I'm gonna tell you, if you come to me with that, I'll be inspired. I'll want to connect with you, and I'll want to continue that journey and that relationship with you.
That's good. That's
really good advice.
Really good, Liza.
Yeah.
Amy, how do you speak to that?
Yeah, good question. And being in a nonprofit, it's different. Our boss or our next up is a board. And that is a board of advisors who are leaders like yourselves. I bet, how many of you are serving on a nonprofit board or have been involved? Great. And we'll get into that a bit in a moment. If you're not, call me. I'll be happy to talk with you about ways we can get you plugged in a million wonderful organizations locally. But I think it goes back to, again, relationships. I love the why. Why do you care? Why are you passionate? That just goes a long, long way. So I don't know that I have any brilliance beyond what's already been shared, but it goes back to relationships and being willing to ask.
That's good. So we talked a little bit about career networks. Now we want to go into about external networks. And we all know that there are many types of networks that we can build and cultivate, but when we've been speaking about our career networks, but I'd like to shift it a little bit and talk more about how can we get with group organizations and our communities? How do we allow ourselves to branch outside of our own organizations or companies to meet other people? Dan and David, I want you two to talk a little bit about this. What was most critical to you when elevating various organizations as you built your own external network? What was that like for you all?
I'll start. I think for me personally, it all starts with vulnerability and being uncomfortable with being comfortable with the uncomfortable. I've had the opportunity to join several external networks through work, and I didn't know a lot about them. I didn't naturally have a gravitation to them, but I knew it would give me experiences that I wasn't necessarily getting at work. It would introduce me to a broader community within Cincinnati, and that vulnerability piece of just jumping in and not knowing all the details, but developing those contacts, and over time developing confidence, and then over time being comfortable in groups like this, talking about the mission of the council or the group that you're supporting, it really becomes infectious. I had the opportunity to get involved with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. I was inspired by one of the team members here in this room today, and when she told me about it, I said, I'll help, I'll join, and one thing led to another, and ultimately I ran in a citywide competition for fundraising, and I served on the board, and it was never something that I thought I would do. I'm a very competitive person. I'm a very action-paced person. I like what I do at work because it gives me that opportunity. But within the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, I saw that I could apply those interests to help raise money for blood cancer research, and I could provide those same traits that I have naturally for the good of people. And as you walk into that and as you do more and more, it starts to get you more comfortable in doing more and more. This year, in a month, I'm going to be hosting the Arts Wave campaign for GE. And that's another avenue where last year I did it for the first time. I'm not an arts guy, but I can now understand and relate and communicate and drive passion around why it is so important. So all of that said, all starts with that vulnerability piece and leaving yourself open to try something new, and you'll be amazed at where it can take you.
I think that's a phenomenal way to answer the question. I'm going to call Amy as well to get signed up for some nonprofits.
Yeah,
She threw that out on the table for everybody in the room. But as I was listening to you, Dan, it actually reminded me quite a bit of a personal experience that I actually had with joining the American Red Cross Board a few years ago. And I served in the military for a number of years, got out, started working, and we all know the Red Cross, right? That brand, that logo, everyone in the room sees it and immediately has a response or a reaction to it, and it might mean very different things depending on who you are and where you've come from in your life. Maybe you had a personal or a family tragedy that the Red Cross benefited. Maybe you have benefited the Red Cross in some way, shape, or form. But when I had the opportunity to become part of the Greater Cincinnati-Dayton Red Cross Board, I actually felt the same way that Dan just described. First of all, was kind of shocked that I got invited, looking around like, really? This is the guy? Okay. But secondarily from that, coming from having served in the military, my Red Cross experience was very different. The active duty U.S. military uses the Red Cross to notify family members when you are deployed and there's an issue with a service member. Could be a death, could be just a really bad calamity or an injury or something along those lines. But the actual process of notifying folks back home is through the Red Cross, which a lot of people don't know about. So that was my only impression of what the Red Cross was going to be about. Of course, you see natural disasters, fires, et cetera, and fantastic volunteers from the Red Cross streaming in to provide aid. But I really felt, frankly, vulnerable and even a little bit embarrassed when I was invited to join the board, because I just didn't know. I not only didn't feel like I was qualified or knew enough about the organization to benefit it in any way as a board member, didn't understand the mission clearly enough, and really didn't know anyone else on the board whatsoever. What I found is that by being comfortable, being vulnerable, and just being honest about my own lack of awareness, it was an amazing experience. The board itself, 35 to 40 tremendous leaders from around greater Cincinnati and fantastic volunteers from a very diverse group of backgrounds. And what I learned in the years that I was part of that organization was the more I was willing to open up, be willing to learn, be willing to be vulnerable, be willing to just engage with different groups, different people that maybe I had never had an opportunity to come in contact with, all it did was make me better, frankly, at everything. In a nutshell, just having greater awareness. And I think to Liza's point, it really will teach you, if you get those opportunities, to be not just comfortable with being surrounded by people that aren't exactly like you, but actually seeking out opportunities to be around people who are not exactly like you. So I think that was great, Dan. Thanks for that.
I would just add on to that, what you said resonates. If not you, who? Mm-hmm. You have more impact than you give yourselves credit for. You can make a difference much more than you know or you think you can. And I think what you said was they're looking at you saying, why me? These groups, these councils, nonprofits in work need you. Mm-hmm. And yes. Leaders are looking for people to fill those gaps. What a great opportunity to get involved. If not you, who? Give yourself more credit than what you think you can actually do.
Wonderful. Julie and Amy, do you serve on any boards? And what is that like for you?
I'm currently on the board of Insuring the Children, and it is a local organization here in greater Cincinnati where it's just insurance professionals where we raise money to try and break the cycle of child abuse. I can't think of anything more important, to work on. One of the best things about being on a board is it's one thing to work with someone at work where your paychecks are tied together and you work together, but when you serve on a board, you're trying to influence and learn and work with others. There's no paycheck involved, right? You're doing it just because for the good of your community, and that really helps you learn to work with others, I think, in no other way. So.
100%. Yes, sign up. Come on, I'll take all of you. So when you think about, when I left Camp Joy, which is a nonprofit, I went to the Chamber, which is officially a nonprofit, but a very different model. I intentionally went off all boards, and I said, I want to learn and be all in my job. So I just stopped by saying, I think there's a time and place for everything. Somebody once said, you can do it all, but maybe you can't do it all right now. And so know when is the right time for you. If you have young children, maybe it's not the right moment. So I wanted to be all in on my job so I could really learn the region. And then I realized what was missing for me. I was missing my connection to the outdoors, and I was missing my connection to youth and families. And so that's where then I sought out boards where I could plug in. So I joined the YMCA and joined Valley View. One was grassroots, one was more corporate. So why? Why would you want to join a board? Well, one, nonprofits need you and they need help. You don't have to be a full board member. You could be on a committee, you could volunteer. But you can also think strategically about what boards you might want to join. If you're trying to elevate in your business, look at who else is on that board. Are there connections? Are there possible business connections that you could make by being on that board? Yes, there's the wonderful altruistic of helping the cause and helping the people, but you're going to gain a lot and you're also going to give a lot as well. So think strategically. when you look at who else is on that board, because you will gain tons of experience working with people where you're trying to influence one another and it's not tied to a paycheck. It's a good call.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. And Liza, I know you serve on a board as well. You want to talk 2 minutes about that real quickly?
Yes. So I have been considered and called a serial board member because I have been on a lot of boards over many years. Back to the why, I think you also, as you select and think about the boards or committees that you may, because sometimes you can't jump right onto a board, sometimes you want to be or serve on a committee first. Again, look at what kind of makes you happy, what drives, because there's so many amazing nonprofit organizations here in our region. So you have to kind of think about how do I want to plug in, and you can't do them all. So think about what are my beliefs, what are my values, and again, they could all make sense, but you have to kind of narrow that down to, okay, I want to focus on things, if it may be around children, or it may be the arts, or whatever it is, I would recommend that. And I think to Amy's point, and I shared this with someone earlier, I joined a board. It actually was the chamber board because this was many years ago, because I wanted to connect with people, and it was the chamber. So lots of other businesses, or all businesses that are in that room. It's not a board where you're so much giving of yourself, you're receiving a lot of good information. It is the chamber. So amazing information and work that happens at the chamber. And at the same time, I literally would make a list of 5 companies that I would want to connect with when I would go to the meeting, because there was time to network before the meeting started. And I did 5 because I probably might get to 2 because maybe 3 weren't even there. They didn't even show up, which happens because we're all doing business. So I am on the Cincinnati Children's Hospital Board. I've been on Ready. I've been on way too many boards, but I have loved every single one of them. I'm doing one that's really connected to Black-owned businesses and OTR, because that's my passion. It's called Represent Cincy. And so how I can help grow other Black businesses to have actually brick and mortar businesses in OTR, because we want more of that representation in that community where it serves lots of different people. So I'm on a big corporate board with the hospital, and I'm on a very small board with Represent Cincy. So great opportunities to connect, to serve, to give of yourself, your time, your talent, your treasures. But you get a lot back from those. It's not about what you give to them, it's what you get in return. That is probably far outweighs what you can show up and do each and every time.
Wow. Sorry. No, wonderful, wonderful. And in saying that, I hope you all gained a lot of knowledge today, wrote down some things that you want to get out of not just a personal mentor or a sponsor, but how can you be connected to the community, what's available, what is valuable to you, what lines up with your values, your missions, and how do you want to make an impact with the people that you come in contact with. Let's give it up for this amazing panel. Yes?